whether we use Adobe or Canva or Microsoft Word, we're not necessarily just teaching the programs, right? We're teaching the skills.
In this conversation with Matt Hinkel, we talk about the 3 important things teachers need to know when starting their program.
I would say biggest things that I would say I was bad at, but remembering it's a student production, right? It's, I would say my first 5-7 years of doing this, it was, okay, this has to be perfect.
The pride that students get when seeing their creations online or on the big video board.
Sometimes the pride that they get, in the creation of stuff. You see a kid create something and then, oh, that was my, video, my graphic on social media. That was fun.
And why students are getting ahead of the curve using tools now in high school to create content that professionals use worldwide.
Here at Northwest, we try to use a lot of those same things that kids would get, as they go to college, as they get into the real world.
Hey everyone, we're back with a new season and more great educator conversations. Thanks for joining us today. I am joined by Matt Hinkel, who's in his 7th year at Northwest High School in Grand Island, Nebraska. He's a digital media teacher and also eSports coach who's built a phenomenal student broadcast digital media program that impacts over 40 students across all of his different activities. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Taylor. Glad to be here.
You bet. If you've watched season 1, we jump right in. You can do all the research on Matt. I just told you a little bit. But Matt, what are the 3 most important things for broadcasting and digital media teachers to know when starting a program? If you can remember back, 7 years at Northwest, but several at West Point Beamer, you were doing the same thing.
Yeah. When I started, I think, digital media was just coming around, but I mean, ultimately, my principal even at that time was like, hey, let's start doing this. And it's a scary thing, but ultimately just to start. I mean, start somewhere, start simple, start basic. That's kind of the biggest thing, just create something, even if it's a commercial, something to put out on social media. But once you start, then you get ideas, you start seeing feedback, you start getting, kids interested in what's happening. And then all of a sudden it just blows up and, expands. I would say that's my biggest one. Number 2, and this was one of my, I would say, biggest things that I would say I was bad at, but remembering it's a student production, right? It's, I would say my first 5-7 years of doing this, it was, okay, this has to be perfect. If we're going to put this out, like, what are we going to do? And it was just like, then I start watching, the NFL, I start watching other things and you see oopsies all the time from them, not major ones, but you find out that there's other people that are doing this as a profession. So why is my expectation that it has to be perfect? Finding, it gives us something just to talk to those kids about. If we're messing up, how are we messing up? What are we doing? How are we going to fix it? So those mess ups get us going and everything else. So, remembering it's a student production. And then my other one is you gotta start with, you borrow, steal, and collaborate from other teachers. Twitter or X, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things have those student content, even YouTube, you find those things or you find those people, I would say my 2 that I talk to a lot and ask what they're doing, Rob over in Kearney and then Stephanie Holdsworth in St. Paul. I use those 2 as, hey, what are ideas that you guys have, or what are you doing? And I know we go back and forth, or they'll ask the same things, but that's just building me as, giving me some ideas also, which then translates into other teachers and stuff. So.
Yeah, I love that. There's actually a book called Steal Like an Artist that we love to talk about. Brandon Mowinkle, who was our first guest on the show, mentions that a lot. But you also mentioned community, which is really important to have that community, whether that's a text group or our community that we've started, Future Ready Educators, that you can go and ask questions, I think is really huge. Or it's the ideas. Hey,
yeah,
if this is working for you, it probably is going to work for us.
And the community is great. I mean, there are people bouncing ideas off. And, I heard somebody say at one time that even if you're off there for a little while or, off social media, it's like a river. It always is flowing and you just kind of jump back in. You don't worry about catching up. It's just you jump back in and you go with what's there. But yeah, there's always there's places to look for everything. So staying engaged with what's around you is just a huge thing of finding those ideas for kids.
Yeah, I love that. Transitioning to communication skills that are being developed through broadcasting, how do you think that helps students improve those skills?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, what are we communicating, how we're teaching that piece. I look at like my broadcast class. We have 16 kids in that class, and their goal is to put out a newscast ultimately every 2 weeks. They're doing the interviews, they're writing questions, they're talking, they're writing voiceovers, they're doing the anchors for those things. I find that over the last couple of years, we get a mix of kids. We get some kids that are super good editors. We get some kids that are really good talkers. We get some, there's just a wide variety of things. But it's teaching some of the basics. One of the things that our kids nowadays don't know how to do is communicate face to face. And I would say sometimes adults do poor job of that. We'd rather email. We'd rather, email or text somebody instead of just call somebody on the phone. And that's that's our day and age. But, teaching kids to communicate face to face with people, having to set up those interviews is huge, because some of the times that when we're doing this, these kids don't know each other. They don't have them on Snapchat or whatever. So they have to, hunt them down and talk to them. And it's just a great skill to have. And like I said, it's the day and age that we're in. So finding that, but then also some of those other things as far as like telling the story. How are we telling a story with words as we're doing these video packages? How do we transition from one thing to the next, and getting our message across? So kids are having to almost step back and look at it to see how things flow. And it just makes them sometimes think about coming up with words. Not everything is a smooth transition. So how do we find going from one section to the next, and put those two pieces together?
Yeah, you mentioned you do a news show. Kind of forgot about that. Every 2 weeks. Has it always been that? Or we were just talking to a teacher the other day that does a daily.
Yeah.
And do you find that that's been really valuable, where they can really sink into the work? The stories still are relevant after 2 weeks?
Yeah. And some of it is we have to really, when we start having our content meetings, we really have to look at what's there. We can't find something that's going on now. Maybe it's not relevant in 2 weeks. We have done some things where, it's homecoming this week. If we don't push that video out for 2 weeks, no one really cares. So, that video might get done by the end of this week. We might push it out, and then that way it's out, and maybe we play it again in 2 weeks. So, if you missed it, it's in the package, if you will, but maybe we run it as a standalone. 2 weeks, have we always done that? I like the 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks dealing with, what you have for kids, what time strains they have. I don't want this to be a burden, because, if you're doing, and not saying it's not feasible, but sometimes it's very tough to track people down and get it. So it's at least in my mind, a decent package. 2 weeks is good. You see a lot of, obviously, the news, they push things out, and it's, but they got, one person that's their job to do.
Yeah, that's their job. I was just going to say.
So it makes it a lot easier. For me also, if I'm putting pressure on the kids to do it every day, what does that look in the long term of things? I don't want this to be a stressful thing either for them. So, I already have, for our broadcast class, the kids put in a ton of extra time outside of class, getting their B-roll, doing interviews. That pushing it too much faster, I feel seems, I don't want to say unrealistic, but it makes it tough. Could it be done? Sure, absolutely. But for what we're doing, I think 2 weeks is great.
I love it. Yep. You got to do what's best for you and your group of students. You got 16, gives them plenty of time. Like you said, sometimes the coach or the student isn't available. So
right.
You're on their schedule. Sometimes you're not on your schedule when you have class, when you want to get that done. So.
Yep, exactly.
How have you observed students transform that have maybe come in as freshmen to senior through creating content in a school environment?
Yeah, I think there's a couple big ones, but sometimes the pride that they get, in the creation of stuff. You see a kid create something, and then that was my video, my graphic on social media. That was fun. We're doing these video boards now at Northwest. We just got them, so we're at one football game in. We got a big football game coming up this weekend, homecoming week. Digital media 2 class has been pushing out material, and when I was talking to the kids about this, they were like, where's this going to go? Is this just going to go on social media? I'm like, no, this is going to go, during the game, this is going to get played. What? No way. Like they're excited about that. So I think just even the pride behind it. And then, honestly, like the belonging to a group. Sometimes you get kids that really don't belong to anyone, and then they find this as another group to belong to, whether it be you're in digital media or you're doing Striv, but it's just bringing kids with those likenesses, those things that they enjoy, and putting them together. There's just that sometimes they get that confidence with them too. So it's been neat to see some of those kids grow as over the years.
Puts a little pressure on them too, knowing that content is going to be seen by hundreds of people live
Absolutely.
in stadium now that you have the video boards, which is incredible.
And especially just to see I've never done this before. I don't know. I talked to Rob and I've talked to Steph about their things that they're doing, but they've given us ideas, and I show our kids ideas, and then all of a sudden my kids are talking about another thing that they want to try to do. So it's fun to see the creativity that they get. And then, as they're collaborating with each other about, what about this? And we had one kid today, he was like, we need to have a referee graphic, so when the flag gets thrown, so we have something for that. So I'm like, yeah, see what you can find. Let's
That's
do
cool,
it, and
yeah.
let's create something. So
as long as it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? When we're talking about refs.
Well, he asked if I would put on a ref shirt and go stand in front of the green screen and do some stuff, and I didn't know about that one.
Not yet. I love it. That's you love to see the creativity in students when you have those opportunities to do that. How do you think a lot of these skills that they're developing are preparing them for a future digital workforce where they're going to have to know how to do all these things digitally?
Right. It's fun to see kids grow, kids learn. Here at Northwest, we try to use a lot of those same things that kids would get, as they go to college, as they get into the real world. We use Premiere Pro, we use Photoshop, we also use Canva. Some of those things that Adobe used to be a huge thing, but now you're seeing a lot of businesses transition to that, internet-based programs, and Canva's been a huge one. Over the last couple of years, it's been fun to I'll get text messages from like former students, and they'll be like, hey, my college class sucks. And I'll be like, why? They're like, it's so boring. We already know all this stuff. Like, you taught us everything. So it's sometimes fun to see some of that, that they're getting that information now where it puts them a step ahead. We had a kid that went on last year, and he was helping the Huskers at UNL, and got some opportunities just because he knew, what it was like to create graphics, do some social media, take pictures. So it put him a step above on some of those other things. I had another student just last week that she said she was working at a job. I forget what it was, for some boutique, and basically the lady was like, well, I don't have Photoshop, and that's probably what you have, but we do use Canva. And the girl was like, I got it. This is easy. And she, the boss lady was happy that she knew how to run all these programs. And I think that's part of it. We're teaching, whether we use Adobe or Canva or Microsoft Word, we're not necessarily just teaching the programs, right? We're teaching the skills. So whatever those skills are, that when they get out into the real world, they can take those and create and to do. So it's been neat to see some of those things come around.
Yeah, you got a lot of great examples. Damon works for us, does some support. He's doing some great things, and Haley and Levi and all sorts of great examples of that now that you just shared. I think
absolutely
brings a smile to my face too.
And that was even, some of those kids, even when I start looking at like Strive, Damon loved, sports. He loved doing that, but he didn't necessarily have the athletic ability to do those things. And that's what I do like about some of that Strive. It brings those kids together too, that they can
Yeah.
still, be part of a team while still doing that sports level. And that's what's fun about some of that.
Love it. Okay, we covered a lot, and we got a little bit of time of going off script here, but I know you can roll with it because it's about esports.
All right, perfect.
How have you seen? First of all, what drew you to be the esports coach? What was kind of the draw for you? Besides you being a gamer, I suppose.
Yeah, so I would say I've always been a gamer, but and honestly, it was just kind of picking up. I know there was a couple schools in the area that were doing it. I just moved to Northwest, and I know one of the juniors at the time had contacted you about doing esports, and you kind of threw them my way, and I didn't really have any intentions of pursuing it by any means. Let's get in and figure out what's going on at Northwest first. But when the kid came and talked to me, we just kind of went with it, and I guess we haven't looked back, and we're still growing. So it's been a fun journey. This year we've officially broke the 100 schools in the state of Nebraska that are participating in our league. It actually will be probably closer to 110, 115 schools by the time we get final numbers, and second semester for sure rolls around. But no, it's, the thing, we looked at it, I think last summer, and we were kind of comparing it to some NSAA things. And, we have more esports teams than there are baseball teams in Nebraska, as far as at the NSAA level. When you start looking at something like that, that's kind of like, whoa, there's a lot of schools that are doing this and are excited about it.
How have you seen kind of the merge of students that you have in your digital media broadcasting programs that are in esports that there's content creation all over esports, right? Streaming on Twitch, and you even hire some people to take video and photos at your events. Talk about how that's been fun to see those two things merge.
Yeah, content creation. Content creation used to just be, for a few things, but now it is everything. Everything's content creation. You can go get an internship for content creation at, any type of job almost anymore. And it's transitioning into that esports world. The same kids that, just because you like content creation doesn't mean you have to do it for sports. You got content creation for esports, and you see that. So yeah, like you said, we're trying to get kids more involved with, at our state events. We've kind of almost mimicked kind of how Strive has done, the state sports events, just saying, hey, who wants to come do this, and who wants to have this opportunity? And that's what we're trying to give kids, more opportunities for them to showcase what they want to do. And we've seen a lot of cool things come out of it. We've also had some learning opportunities where we talk to kids about, try doing this next time, or what happens if you do this. And it's been a learning experience for us and also the students. And I think that's what education's all about.
Yeah. What's one thing, if you're speaking to other esports coaches, that you would kind of, like I asked you, what's the three most important things in starting a broadcast program? What's the most important thing when starting an esports program from scratch at the school? You've got some students that want to play some games, not just Nebraska, thinking about educators anywhere in the country. What would you suggest on where to start for them?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you think of esports, you think, I need these flashy gaming machines. I need all this equipment. The nice thing is with esports anymore, a lot of the school equipment handles it. Most AutoCAD labs, most digital media labs will handle these games. So you don't need necessarily the big equipment. And even as, Coach Simmons or myself talks to a lot of these coaches or potential coaches, they're worried that, how do I start this program? I see what your program is, and I don't know how to get started. The same thing that I was talking about with digital media, just jump in, do something. I talked to one coach last summer and they're like, well, we've been doing it, but it's just more of an after school program. And I don't know. And it's like, dude, you're already doing it. Let's jump in and just see what it is. And I think that's part of it. Some people are just scared to take on something else. Some people are afraid of what the outcome is. Or even just comparing yourself to somebody else. Like, I would hate for, somebody to look at my program and say, well, I can't live up to that. I can't do that. Well,
and then not do it. And you have students who want to.
Right. Every year I have new kids come in, and for the first 2-3 weeks, it is chaos. Kids don't know how to plug in keyboards and mice, and they don't know how to log into their stuff. And it's a headache, but kids, again, they find a way. And we're at the point now in the year that I could sit here at my desk the whole time and kids are going to be doing it, and they can do it. So, it's still that training and everything else, but once kids jump in, they find a way.
I love it. Well, we wrap up each episode with a shameless humble brag, and we ask, how has the training and resources support from Striv helped you improve as a broadcasting and digital media teacher?
Mm-hmm. I always look at the help that I get. I mean, that is still my one biggest thing with Striv, and Striv Education is how can I get help doing things. And you guys are never afraid to help out with, even today I was working on something we're trying to do a replay and use Wirecast Pro and try to get some things working with that. And, couldn't get something. And I texted Hoosier real quick. And I'm like, hey, do you have time for a quick call? And he's like, yep, FaceTime me. And we worked through some things. And, I feel like that's the thing. You guys care about the programs. You care about everyone, what everyone's doing. Everyone's program is unique, but yet Striv Education finds a way to build everyone's program for what they need. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without teachers like you who want to tinker and mess around with things like replay. And then we can, we don't always know the answers either, but we're going to be right alongside you. So appreciate that. Thanks, Matt. You're doing a phenomenal job impacting a ton of students at your school, and we appreciate you. And I hope those watching found some great insights from Matt Hinkel at Northwest High School. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Taylor.